Hello, I'm Mike Levin from MikeLevinSEO.com, and today I'm here to answer that most nagging of questions: why the Raspberry Pi as the place to choose to target your programming endeavors and your coding for. Okay, to answer that question, you got to understand that there's really kind of two worlds going on right now. The very popular world that's based around screens, and we'll draw you in the middle. And up here in this direction, you've got local computers, things that are running near you, like a laptop computer, or your tablet, or your smartphone. And the code is actually running directly on that hardware. It might be virtualized in little virtual machines, like execution sandboxing engines like Java, but nonetheless, it's running local. There's this other world out there that has the computers in a remote location from you. And so many people today call that the cloud. And you have some code running out there on the cloud. Now, the only thing that makes the cloud different from the rack space servers that came before is how the resources are partitioned off for you. 10 years ago, it was almost always a physical server, a separate piece of hardware. Today, it's much larger computers or same-size computers with massive more capacity, and the partitioning off of resources is done in software such that you get a unit that's roughly the equivalent of one rack-mounted server. Now, there is, of course, another code execution environment that's posing as something new, as a new sort of platform, and that is, of course, the web. Now, the truth is, the web is really just local code. It's your browser running on your local machine. And there might be some code in there that's executing as if it were your local machine. But almost all websites are communicating with something else somewhere, a remote server. So there is also code executing back here as well, in something in the cloud, remote hardware. This is very, shall we call it, screen-centric. And you know, we Homo sapiens love our stories. And this makes perfect sense that technology and what people think about programming for is very centralized around the screen, the touch screen, even the web browser being thought of as an interactive user interface screen, with code just happening to come from somewhere else. This is just one of the worlds going on, this screen-centric world in technology. Code can run in a lot of contexts and in a lot of places. And what's down here is what's increasingly being called the Internet of Things. In the Internet of Things, there's not necessarily screens involved. You can very easily run some code on this tiny little microsensor down here, or microcontroller they call it, called the Arduino. You actually need to use a computer to write the code and sort of plug it into there, and then it's never quite as large of an amount of code as a general computer. But also down in this side of things are in fact general computers, of which the Raspberry Pi is one. And this is just a controller. And the general computer runs code on it just as legitimately as any of the things up here. It is very analogous to one of these units in the cloud. Now also down here is a wide array of other devices. Certainly your thermostat and probably your refrigerator, if not now then in the near future, and the car, and just about everything else that benefits from having a microcontroller inside of it. Things that you wear, perhaps even not in the distant future, some sort of embedded medical devices. Now the word embedding is important because what embedding does is it takes either this controller unit or this general computer unit and it puts it inside of some device. Like, let's say for example this person is playing tennis and it's one of those smart tennis rackets that records your game and lets you play it back and analyze it. Now they could just pack this thing full of sensors, but they want the racket to be able to do a little bit more on its own than just record stuff and rely on an external computer for playback or for taking the data out and do further processing. So there is in fact a general computer in there. And when you learn to program for things like the Raspberry Pi, you're learning something a lot more like embedded systems than you are when you take this screen-centric approach. And it prepares you better for tomorrow. You could actually take this and physically use it in projects like robots, putting it on things that move, attaching it to cameras, and countless unlimited other devices and projects. Just Google it. The projects are endless that you can use a tiny general computer for. In addition to just the obvious control, you have greater control. Hard drive crashes aren't going to set you back because it's just an SD card that can be imaged real easily. You'll never be shut off from your account. This is a service. This is a vendor-based service. You have to pay monthly to keep that going. And they could shut you off. Sure, they'll say you could take the image and plug it somewhere else, but I ask people to actually try. You'll understand that the sense of control is different here and here. And what about web programming? Well, I tell you, you will be doing web programming just as legitimately as any other approach, because this unit here is approximately the same as this unit here. And whereas this communication actually has to occur to power the web browser, so it is with the more Raspberry Pi embedded approach. So when I answer why Raspberry Pi, it's to prepare you for a much larger world that's out there that has you as a more powerful technological person capable of interacting with and programming for the Internet of Things. In addition to doing quite well for yourself in today's world, having a deeper understanding than those people who just approach things from this side and never dig deeper. And they were always in danger of things kind of becoming magic. Whereas here, it's physical stuff in your hands. It's just more fun. And quite frankly, in the not distant future, the computing power that's represented by the Raspberry Pi is going to be able to go into a shoebox-sized device in such quantities, like times 100,000 in terms of computing power, that you're going to have today's data centers that are powering the Facebooks and the Googles of the world in a shoebox-sized device that you'll be able to in turn replicate to have all the advantages of distribution and security that they have. And you'll have access to the same technological infrastructure tomorrow that powered the empires, or is powering the empires of today. And you'll just be a lot more ready for it when you have a little piece of hardware like this in your hands. So anyway, thanks for joining me, and I hope to talk to you again soon. And please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.